Imagine spending your entire life collecting other people's trash. Every morning before sunrise, every winter, every summer, doing a job most people wouldn't want. Now imagine retiring with more money than doctors, lawyers, and business owners. It sounds impossible, but that's exactly what happened. When people saw Robert driving through the neighborhood, they saw a garbage collector. They saw a man with a dirty uniform and a physically demanding job. What they didn't see was the quiet financial decision he was making every single month. For nearly 40 years, Robert lived a life that most people would consider ordinary. He never owned a luxury car. He never lived in a mansion. He never bragged about money. In fact, most people assumed he barely had any. And honestly, they had good reason to think that. His paycheck wasn't impressive. His job title wasn't impressive. There was nothing about his lifestyle that screamed success. Yet behind the scenes, a completely different story was unfolding. While others spent their weekends shopping for things they didn't need, Robert was building something invisible. Something small at first. Something that looked insignificant. But over time, it would become a fortune. The funny thing about wealth is that it rarely looks impressive while it's being built. In the beginning, it looks boring. It looks slow. It looks like sacrifice. That's why most people quit before seeing the results. Robert understood something that most people never do. He knew that getting rich wasn't about earning a huge income. It was about keeping a portion of what you earned and letting time do the rest. And so, with every paycheck, no matter how small, he followed the same routine. Not once, not twice, but thousands of times over the course of his life. It wasn't exciting. Nobody applauded him. Nobody congratulated him. Nobody even knew what he was doing. But that's exactly why his strategy worked. Because while the world was paying attention to flashy lifestyles, he was paying attention to something far more powerful: compound interest. Most people think becoming wealthy starts with a brilliant idea, a high-paying career, or a lucky break. Robert believed something different. He believed wealth started with discipline. Every payday, before he bought anything for himself, a portion of his money automatically went into savings and investments. At first, the amount wasn't impressive. Sometimes it was only a few dollars. Other times it was a little more. But Robert wasn't focused on how much he could invest today. He was focused on building a habit that could last a lifetime. That's where most people fail. They wait until they earn more money. They wait until next year. They wait for the perfect opportunity. Robert didn't wait. He started with what he had. The truth is, Robert wasn't naturally good with money. In his 20s, he made mistakes just like everyone else. He bought things he couldn't afford. He spent money trying to impress people. And for a while, he felt stuck. But one day, a simple realization changed everything. He noticed that many people earning far more money than him were constantly struggling financially. The problem wasn't income. The problem was behavior. That realization became a turning point. Instead of asking, "How can I earn more?" Robert started asking a different question. How can I keep more of what I earn? It wasn't an exciting answer. Nobody becomes a millionaire overnight by cutting expenses, but Robert understood that small leaks can sink even the biggest ship. He stopped chasing status. He stopped buying things simply because other people had them. And little by little, his financial life began to change. While friends upgraded their cars every few years, Robert kept driving the same reliable vehicle. While others increased their spending with every raise, Robert increased his investments. To outsiders, it looked like nothing was happening. But beneath the surface, a powerful financial engine was quietly starting to grow. And soon, Robert would discover a tool that would change his future forever. One evening after work, Robert came across an article explaining how ordinary people could become wealthy through investing. At first, he was skeptical. The stock market seemed like something only rich people understood. But the more he learned, the more he realized something surprising. Many millionaires weren't getting rich from huge salaries. They were getting rich from ownership. Ownership of businesses. Ownership of assets. Ownership of things that grew in value over time. For the first time, Robert saw a path that didn't depend on working more hours. So he opened his first investment account. It wasn't a large account. In fact, many people would have laughed at how little money was inside it. But Robert wasn't trying to get rich quickly. He was trying to get rich eventually. And that single mindset made all the difference. Every month, without exception, he invested, rain or shine, good markets and bad markets, recessions and recoveries. He kept going. The first few years were frustrating. Growth was slow. Sometimes the market went down. Sometimes it felt like nothing was happening at all. That's the moment when most people quit. They expect immediate results. They want proof that their efforts are working. Robert chose patience instead. What Robert didn't fully understand at the time was that the most powerful force in investing was already working in his favor. It wasn't his income, it wasn't his intelligence, it wasn't luck, it was time. And over the next few decades, time would transform a humble garbage collector into something nobody expected. As the years passed, Robert noticed something interesting. People around him were earning more money than ever before. Bigger houses, newer cars, expensive vacations. Yet many of them seemed more stressed than ever. Every time someone received a raise, their lifestyle grew with it. More income led to more spending, and more spending led to more financial pressure. Robert called it the invisible treadmill. No matter how fast people ran, they never seemed to get ahead. He promised himself he would avoid that trap. Every raise he received had only one purpose: increasing the amount he invested. That decision wasn't always easy. Sometimes he wanted the same things everyone else wanted. Sometimes he wondered if he was missing out. Then he would ask himself a simple question: do I want to look rich today or be rich tomorrow? That single question guided thousands of decisions. Throughout his life, while coworkers financed expensive vehicles, Robert drove a truck that many considered outdated. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. While others ate out regularly, Robert cooked at home, not because he had to, because he understood that small savings repeated for decades become enormous. Most people never notice these choices. They seemed insignificant, but wealth is often built through decisions so small that nobody pays attention to them. Then something remarkable began to happen. The money Robert invested started earning money of its own. At first, the growth was barely noticeable. A few dollars here, a few dollars there. Nothing exciting, but compound interest works like a snowball rolling downhill. It starts slowly. Then suddenly, it becomes unstoppable. Every dollar he invested began generating additional dollars. Those dollars generated even more dollars. His investments continued working while he worked his route. They continued growing. For the first time in his life, he wasn't relying entirely on his labor to build wealth. One that worked 24 hours a day and never asked for a paycheck. Year after year, decade after decade, the growth accelerated. The numbers that once seemed impossible slowly became reality. And yet, Robert changed almost nothing about his lifestyle. He stayed humble. He stayed patient. He stayed focused. By the time he reached his 60s, something extraordinary had happened. The portfolio he built from thousands of ordinary decisions had grown far beyond anything he imagined. Eventually, retirement day arrived. After decades of waking before sunrise, Robert's final shift had come. Coworkers gathered to celebrate. There were handshakes, speeches, and stories from years gone by. Most people assumed Robert would spend retirement carefully, just like any other worker living on a fixed income. After all, he had spent his entire life collecting garbage. Nobody expected him to be wealthy. Then, during a financial review, the truth became impossible to ignore. The numbers were real. The account balances were real. And the results shocked everyone. The garbage collector many people overlooked had quietly accumulated more than $1 million. Some people thought there must be a mistake. Others assumed he inherited the money. But there was no inheritance, no lottery ticket, no secret business empire. Just 40 years of discipline, patience, and consistency. The same habits repeated over and over again. When people heard Robert's story, they all asked the same question: how did you do it? They expected some secret strategy, some hidden opportunity, some shortcut that nobody else knew about. But Robert's answer was surprisingly simple. He told them that wealth isn't usually built in a single moment. It's built in thousands of moments, thousands of decisions, thousands of opportunities to either spend today or invest in tomorrow. Most people spend their lives looking for the perfect investment. Robert spent his life becoming the perfect investor. Patient, consistent, disciplined. That's why his story is so powerful. Because if a garbage collector working an ordinary job could build extraordinary wealth, what excuse do the rest of us have? The truth is, many people underestimate the power of small actions. They think saving a few dollars won't matter. They think investing a little each month won't change anything. But that's exactly what makes compound growth so dangerous to ignore. Imagine planting a tree today. For years it looks insignificant, barely noticeable. Then one day, it towers over everything around it. Wealth works the same way. The growth is invisible until suddenly it isn't. Looking back, Robert realized that becoming a millionaire had nothing to do with collecting garbage. It had everything to do with collecting good habits. Every paycheck he saved, every unnecessary purchase he avoided, every investment he made, those were the bricks. And year after year, those bricks built a financial fortress. Most people saw a man collecting trash. What they didn't see was a man quietly collecting assets. While others focused on appearances, Robert focused on ownership. And ownership changed everything. In the end, Robert's story wasn't really about money. It was about choices. The choice to think long-term when everyone else was thinking short-term. The choice to stay disciplined when nobody was watching. The choice to keep going when progress felt invisible. Because wealth doesn't care about your job title. Doesn't care where you came from. It responds to patience, consistency, and time. And that's why the garbage collector who looked ordinary to the world retired as a millionaire. Not because he was lucky, but because he understood a lesson that most people never learn. If this story inspired you, remember this. You don't need a perfect salary to start building wealth. You just need to start. Because the best time to invest was years ago. The second best time is today.